We did it! Another year has come and gone. I don't know about you, but 2020 and 2021 have been blurred together in my mind, but the games released in 2021 were great, and the power of next generation shows just how good the future will be. With that said and done, here are my top games of 2021 that you should also definitely check out if you haven't yet. Do note that the following games are based on what I enjoyed, what I would play again, and what I would recommend. If a game you like doesn't appear on this list, it's either because I didn't like it or I simply didn't play it. Also, let me know what your top games of 2021 are in the comments. Alright, let's begin.
Oh no! Stop! No! Damn it, die! No! No! No!
I typically wouldn't add remasters or ports to this list, but when the portion of the gaming population wasn't able to play this gem at its original launch on the Xbox 360 and PC, it's almost like a new game came out. Alan Wake Remastered finally gives the current generation of PlayStation players, as well as Xbox players, the chance to experience this psychological thriller firsthand, and boy does it look good. You can tell work has been done to enhance the graphics. Character models and environments don't look as rough as they used to, but while the cutscenes do look good, there's this odd pixelation that can sometimes be distracting. The story finds novelist Alan Wake on vacation with his wife, Alice, to escape his writer's block, but events go south quickly that night when Alice, who's scared of the dark, goes missing. Now Alan finds himself in the midst of one of his own stories, one that he doesn't remember writing. When the sun goes down, the danger comes out, and you'll have to utilize various means of light, such as flashlights and flares, as well as guns to defeat the darkness that wants to kill Alan. The only part of this remastered release that I wish was there was Alan Wake's American Nightmare, which was a downloadable only semi-sequel to Alan Wake. It would have been nice to see this edition, but it is what it is. So with the recent release and Control's all DLC and a sequel announced for 2023, it's safe to say Alan Wake is now back.
Sorry, kid. Nothing personal.
I find Destruction AllStars to be one of the most overlooked games of the year. It's a fantastic game at what it does best, destruction. Thanks to the power of the PS5's SSD, from every crash of your vehicle to the slick movement of your chosen character, the game is well crafted and the graphics are incredible, probably more than they deserve to be. The variety of characters have loads of personality and the design borders between realistic and cartoony. It's very unique. It takes a lot for me to willingly play games online. I typically don't like a lot of these live service games as they tend to require a higher skill set, and since are free to play, lock most content behind paywalls and lack offline modes. Yes, Destruction AllStars puts its single player story mode chapters behind paywalls, but I didn't find myself as ticked off by this. Story mode contains a load of unlockables for the characters, as well as modes like ones inspired by Crazy Taxi. While the game has a low player count these days, going into a game isn't as difficult and I'm still able to find a match. What I like about playing online is how little skill one needs. Some games I win, some I don't, but as long as I understand how each character and their special abilities work, that's all I need to know. It isn't twisted metal as everyone wants, but I highly recommend checking this out. It's very welcoming to casual audiences. Plus, the game is due for a big update in January 2022 that will help its quality of life. So there really is no better time to try Destruction AllStars.
But what is it that you truly seek?
If you ever truly wanted to play an interactive Pixar movie, let me introduce you to Kena: Bridge of Spirits. Simply put, it's a beautiful game. From its simplistic but meaningful story to its sharp, crisp graphics, Kena: Bridge of Spirits is a must-play on the PlayStation 5. As soon as the game was announced during the PlayStation 5 showcase in 2020, I knew I had to have the game. The game is almost reminiscent of the fun adventure platformers you'd experience on the PlayStation 2, a time when games wanted to experiment and be fun without the pressure of having to make as much money as possible with the same formula every time. As Kena, a spirit guide, you'll help purge the land of its darkness and help guide lost souls from the physical world to the spiritual one. One of the cutest additions to the game are the Rock, small adorable creatures that help Ken in her quest and can aid in combat. As you progress through the game, you'll gain new abilities and upgrades that help Kenna go stronger. There's also loads of collectibles to find such as hidden rot and a variety of hats to dress them up in. The gameplay is simplistic as you use Ken's abilities to jump, climb, and shoot, and I find myself never tiring of the adventure. The only negative I can really say about the game is the lack of a New Game Plus. Not every game needs one, but if you do plan on getting the trophy by playing the game on Master difficulty, you'll find a huge spike while having to get all the upgrades once again. The game was developed by a small developer of only 15 people, and that's an incredible feat. This is one next-gen game that you should not miss. Live, die, repeat. Returnal's roguelike concept isn't for everyone, but for those willing to put in the effort, Returnal is worth the payoff. When Celine crash lands on a mysterious alien planet, she soon finds herself in an endless time loop, one she's desperate to escape. She'll travel through various biomes to gain new abilities to further explore new biomes. I found Returnal to be great to play on small spurts because of this concept. Every time you die, you begin back at the crash site, so any upgrades and weapons you've collected are gone, but you'll keep your new abilities. And with each death, each biome changes, so you'll be familiar with certain sections, but they may show up in different orders, adding some much needed variety to Void-style playthroughs. Enemy types vary, and their unique projectiles will force you to jump and dodge out of the way to save your health. When the game isn't reliant on heavy action combat, you'll experience Celine's past haunting her through a first-person exploration of a mysterious house. Returnal is a game that depends on my emotion. Sometimes I don't mind doing multiple playthroughs and getting equipment to help me become stronger and faster, but there are other times where I put all this work in to just die and start over, and I'm done for the moment. It can be time-consuming, but it all depends on how you go into the game, and that will be different for everyone. If you ever played a Housemarque game in the past, like Resogun or Super Stardust, you'll be familiar with the arcade-like action present in Returnal. I mean, even the pattern of the projectiles of various enemies are reminiscent. Now with the addition of a save system long after release, Returnal has given players more of an edge to play, but it's up to you if you're willing to go on this incredible journey.
You know that I care about you. With everything that has happened, I just want what's best for you.
He doesn't know. No one will once I leave this place. I'll just be a normal girl in a normal town.
Life is Strange True Colors is probably the best Life is Strange title since the original, if not the best in the series. True Colors finds Alex Chen reuniting with her brother in the beautiful, quaint town of Haven Springs. Just as Alex believes she has a second chance at making a home for herself, things take a sudden turn when her brother ends up dead. Unlike previous Life is Strange titles, Alex is already aware of her powers rather than discovering them. She's able to hone in on people's emotions, which can either be a positive or negative experience on her and the story in general. With this power, she'll spend the rest of the game uncovering a bigger issue at hand that resulted in the negligence of her brother's death. True Colors returns to a familiar formula shown in the original game, but this game expands upon that concept. You'll find the close-knit community feel in the small town and the close relationships between the characters, but everything feels more polished and the town feels more alive with character. The game retains its episodic format, but rather than having to wait for over a year for all episodes to be released, the game was released in full, which makes the experience even better, rather than trudging on like Life is Strange 2 did at launch waiting for the rest of the episodes. True Colors manages to emerge from underneath the umbrella, suffocating the series that the success and fandom of the first game brought, and it truly deserves the credit. Deck 9 have proven that the series is in excellent hands, and should a new Life is Strange title be developed by them in the future, I have no doubt that it will be an excellent experience. True Colors is graphically stunning in its amount of detail and vibrant color. It's recommended to play on the next generation of consoles, but last gen holds up really well itself. The motion capture and acting are top notch, the characters could be your own friends and neighbors, and feel instantly likable, and the game's endings feel more contained. I even found myself frustrated at characters in the end during a big confrontation that wasn't going my way. Your emotions will go through a thrill ride. If you felt let down with Life is Strange 2, Life is Strange True Colors is a welcoming embrace that should not be missed.
37. It's time.
Hitman 3 had the pleasure of being one of the first major releases of 2021. At this point, the game has probably been forgotten, but it's one of the best entries in the world of Assassination Trilogy, as well as in the series overall. The developers put a load of work in Agent 47's big trilogy finale. Each location is well crafted and memorable. Past Hitman games have always been well crafted, but for some locations, they outshine others. In Hitman 3, each location varies from aspects like weather, architecture, and even gameplay. One particular location takes place in a huge mansion inspired by the film Knives Out, where 47 can play detective while plotting his kill, or the very first location where Hitman skydives from a plane to a side of a building in Dubai and has to get in. You'll have to climb around the outside of the building to enter. It's mesmerizing and a great way to start the game. Or a level in Berlin, which is at a club. Agent 47 is hunted by the agency, but you don't know who the targets are and will have to explore the area and listen in for clues. These changes to the formula create an addicting need for me to play the story from start to finish. The story takes risks, which is thankfully presented in actual cutscenes rather than the hand-drawn art in Hitman 2. 47 Diana's relationship features hardship, and isn't something we really experienced before, as the story takes a further dive into what makes 47 who he is. Add in the addition of all the content from the first and second games in the trilogy, and you have a huge game full of endless possibilities. But Hitman 3 isn't even done yet. In 2022, the game will receive further content to continue 47's endless mission of assassination. If you let Hitman 3 pass you by at the start of 2021, then it's time to dive into the game for 2022.
I still do not understand why I must remain on board with the assassin.
Because you're part of Green Team.
You assigned me to the team before you named it. My skin is not green. It's teal. Teal? What?
When Marvel's Avengers released in 2020, we were giving a glitchy, grindy, live service game that caused damage to both Square Enix and the reputation of Crystal Dynamics. It was even admitted the following year that Marvel's Avengers was a failure. So when Guardians of the Galaxy was announced in 2021, less than a year after Marvel's Avengers release, I couldn't help but to wonder if people were turned off or willing to throw more cash at Square Enix. Knowing the game is an offline, single-player only experience with absolutely no microtransactions is so comforting in a generation that's full of online-only live service games. Guardians of the Galaxy pays off in its execution. You don't play as each Guardian, but by playing it only as Peter Quill, you fill in the role as leader for this ragtag team, and this title comes into play. Each Guardian has a special ability that helps in combat or during segments that require some thought to navigate, and this is where Peter's guidance comes in. Guardians will argue, and often you have a choice of deciding whether or not to respond and how to respond. When the team is overwhelmed in combat, Peter can get all available members into a huddle and give a pep talk that will either boost everyone significantly or do nothing at all. Whether it's on the ship or during missions, you get a real sense of how each character is and interacts with one another. The group is dysfunctional, yet cares for one another, and you actually feel that. The atmosphere of this game is also what makes it memorable. Each world is designed to stand out from one another, from the architecture to the vegetation to the creatures that inhabit it. Exploration isn't overwhelming, and because of a more linear structure, I find each world to be memorable in itself. I've seen the films, but the group was never big on my radar, but this game changed that. I felt part of the team, and once the game was over, I wanted more, and hopefully the game is successful that we do have more. For the best experience graphically, play on next gen, and for what is probably the most underrated game this year, Guardians of the Galaxy is what happens when you don't make the mistakes of your predecessor, and instead, you learn from them.
Now, let's take a look at him. Well, Ethan Winters. You escaped my little brother's idiot games, did you? Let's see how special you are.
After Resident Evil's reinvention with Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, I had split feelings about this new direction. Yes, it felt like Resident Evil, but at the same time, the first person wasn't doing it for me. When Resident Evil Village was shown, I felt excitement, and that excitement was still there all the way through my first playthrough. Village feels like an homage to the games of Resident Evil past. When Ethan and Mia's newborn is kidnapped, Ethan proves he's a great father and searches for her through a village recently under attack by werewolf-like creatures. Ethan soon discovers that he must confront each of the village's lords to get his daughter back, and it's this game where I finally feel like Ethan isn't just filling a random protagonist spot like he is in 7, he actually has purpose and connection, and I ended up liking him. Each lord and the area they have provide a different gameplay experience, from stalking, to relying on your wits and ability to run and hide, to utilizing puzzles to escape danger, and backtracking through a maze of floors. Each lord's domain is different from one another and requires a different mindset to accomplish. Village also fits itself squarely into the Resident Evil lore with some pretty big revelations on its connection. Yes, the gameplay is more action-orientated. With such a huge variety of gameplay styles in Village, I never found myself bored, and while the typical Resident Evil formula is there, each shift in gameplay dynamic kept the experience fresh. So if 7 wasn't for you, you'll probably find Resident Evil Village to be a huge improvement. Plus, Chris Redfield actually looks like Chris Redfield and not some imposter, so thank you Capcom for actually listening to the fans.
What's... hey.
Hey! Yes, hi! I have Clank.
And now for my top game of the year, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. As much as I love this series, since its days on the PS3, the series has felt like it's been on the fritz. Thankfully, Insomniac came in swinging with Rift Apart, and it's worth the long wait since the last original title on the PS3, Into the Nexus, which is where the story picks off from. When an altercation between Ratchet and Nefarious causes rifts in the dimension, Ratchet and Clank are separated in a new dimension where a different variation Nefarious has won, and Ratchet's dimensional counterpart, Rivet, always loses. Both Ratchet and Rivet control the same, so while they are different characters with their own personalities, you won't need to learn a whole new moveset, which may or may not be disappointing for you. Personally, I was fine with it. Like any other game in the series, you still have a fun variety of crazy weapons at your disposal, but this time I didn't have as many weapons that I found pointless, but there's still a few. The worlds in Rift Apart are stunning and spectacular, Nefarious City is over the top, and when you grind that one rail from the building to the ground, that moment, what you see as you grind, defines the power of the PlayStation 5. Environments vary, with some being smaller, and some being more open to exploration, like one with Ratchet, who needs to use his hover boots to explore the vast land, and as a reward, you'll earn some new facts about Lombaxes. There will be sections where you'll go through various dimensions that show off the power of the PS5's SSD in action. Ratchet and Rivet can also find dimensional pockets to explore that hold hidden treasures of their own, requiring different tactics to explore. Clank and his dimensional counterpart Kit are also given a minigame that can honestly be compared to Clank's puzzle sections in A Crack in Time. They will test your thought process thoroughly as they get harder each time. But what really made Rift Apart my top game of 2021 is how it differentiated itself from its predecessors. The game is familiar, yet it feels different. Yes, it's still a platform with gunplay, but it lies in the risk the game takes. Nefarious somehow became Ratchet and Clank's #1 enemy, which after a while felt pointless. But with Rift Apart, Nefarious takes a backseat to the main story, and his counterpart, Emperor Nefarious, is the villain the series deserves. He doesn't rely on ridiculous points of vengeance or humor to stand out. He's cunning, devious, and a more polished version than Nefarious could ever be. And the story feels like an evolution for the series, with Ratchet questioning if he even wants to find the Lombaxes after everything. Is it worth it? No characters like Quark aren't really a part of the game other than the opening, and honestly, it's nice to see his role limited. Past games have relied too much on Quark's humor. Overall, while the game is called Ratchet and Clank, it feels like it should be called Rivet and Clank. Rivet has more of a light shine on her than Ratchet, and yet I'm okay with that. For years we've experienced Ratchet's adventures, and I like this sharing of the torch with a new character with her own backstory. My only complaint would be that certain major characters are missing, like Ratchet's girlfriend Talwyn, who yes appears in the artwork in the credits, but she's his girlfriend. She should have been a part of the story. If you own a PlayStation 5, you owe it to yourself to play Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and let's hope Insomniac games are a bit quicker to give us a proper sequel this time. So, goodbye 2021 and hello 2022. It'll be a year full of new and returning franchises to play for hours and hours and hours on end. What games are you looking forward to in 2022? Let me know in the comments, like and subscribe, and if you're interested in my top games of 2020 that I made halfway through 2021, you should check out my top games of 2020 in 2021 video. As always, I'll see you in the next video.